Good evening, everyone. I'm tickled back here because, sometimes people who are influencers or in a leadership position have to really talk through some things in order to do what it is that they actually are called or assigned to do. And I was just watching Becoming on Netflix. I wouldn't have had any idea it was coming on if I didn't see someone on my timeline mention it. And I was like, yes, perfect. I want to see it. And prior to it coming on, I was having one of those conversations with myself again about, coming on. Hey, guys. How's everyone doing this evening? I was having, one of those conversations with myself about coming on, and I'm like, you got to go on. And I want to just tell you guys, find something that empowers you. Find something that inspires you. And even with your empowerment, it has to be coupled with self-leadership. We're going to talk about, leadership leads on tonight, but I was watching Becoming with Michelle Obama, and man, it's just so important to have people that you admire. Hey, Patricia, darling, how are you? It's so important to have people that you admire, people who are doing things that you desire to do in your space. I'm going to say that again. It's so important to have people that you admire, people who are doing things that you aspire to do in your space. Because it's so easy for us to fall into our emotions. Y'all don't hear me. It's so easy for us to fall into our emotions and forget what we were called to do. One thing I know about emotions, and you guys may have heard this before, but it says faith has nothing to do with your emotions. Faith has nothing to do with your emotions. Now, that can sound like this unfair statement, sometimes, especially if you're in your feelings or if you're having one of your moments, which I was having, because I was trying to talk myself out of coming on yet again. Like, I think I've done this more regularly, more than I ever had to have the conversation in my mind about why I needed to come on anyway. I think I've had it more during this stay-at-home time than any time. I think I'm one step higher into being so relaxed. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm working back here, behind the scenes. But another thing that, as I'm sharing, another thing I realized that I did was I took the consistent weekly time frame off. And I was telling myself today, I said, you have to set a new weekly time frame. So I had, I used to come on every week on Mondays and Wednesdays at 11:30 a.m. for at least a couple years, just not missing a beat. And I was in the process of setting the foundation for my 3D Success Academy. So, I kind of let everybody know I wasn't coming on as regularly. I would just do it. But, it made me really, as I'm sharing now, it made me realize how important it is to have some type of accountability, whether it's setting a date for something that you need to do, whether it's a strong force or a mentor, someone in your life to hold you accountable. Because our emotions, guys, our emotions will always tell us to do something else. So how many of you had an opportunity to see Michelle Obama's Becoming on Netflix? Put me in the comments if anybody has seen that. I actually, my aunt posted earlier today that she was watching it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch that. Now, I'm not a TV watcher, right? So my daughter came in my room and attempted to turn my TV on because our TVs work through our internet because we don't have cable. So we have Roku. And she was saying hers wasn't working properly. And listen, I started coming up with all this stuff. I was like, okay, good. Right around the time for me to go and broadcast. And my daughter wants to watch TV, so that's going to be my excuse. Listen, I came up with everything that you could possibly come up with. I came up with it on tonight. So you've watched it, Patricia. Looking forward to watching it again. I think that I know for certain that we don't know the importance of what we watch and what we pay attention to and how it impacts every single thing that we do and don't do. And I've been sharing forever, guys, to police your thoughts and, guard your ear gates and your heart gates. And it's super important, guys. I was watching Michelle. She said a couple things that I wrote down that I want to share with you guys tonight. Guys, do me a favor. If you've been on with me before and you feel this will be valuable, share this out. There's a little button on the left. You can press it. It says share with someone else who could use some conversation about leadership. In the title, I have leadership leads. Leadership leads. And it couldn't have been a more ideal, more perfect time for me to watch Michelle share her story of the presidency and being first lady and her experience in the White House and even from her childhood photos. But she said something that I feel is like super, super important, guys. Like so important. It's one of the reasons why as I began, coaching, teaching, and training and helping women to build their brands, I started recognizing that we would have these cookie cutter things being created if we didn't go a little deeper. We would have, and this is what we see on social media now, is a cookie cutter thing. We see a copycat thing. And I was listening to Michelle share how important your story is. So one of the things I do when I'm working with my clients is we really go deep. I call it brand DNA. Andrea, thank you for joining this evening, dear. I call it brand DNA because I really, really believe that your story has intricate pieces to really developing an authentic brand that you don't mind building. Does that make sense to you guys? It's parts of your DNA, right? Intricate details to your DNA that you may overlook, that you may feel are not important, that may not normally be accepted society-wise, as far as society is concerned, or as far as the etiquette, is concerned in as far as building a brand, and maybe the cookie cutter way that people are doing it. But there's something so powerful in your story that helps you do the things that you don't necessarily always want to do. For instance, when I was having my Come to Jesus meeting about coming on at 9:30 this evening, it made me think about every single time I think about not coming on. I think about my grandmother. I don't know how many of you have, heard me share with you all before that back in 2001, I believe, I started researching my family tree. And I found out that I had come from a line of really, really strong women who were really, really committed. But I also noticed that they were committed to some things that just weren't healthy, right? I began to learn of all the struggles my grandmother had as a parent, as a woman, attempting, to make it, all of the different struggles. And two of the things that stood out for me when I began to learn of my family history and our lineage. And I am so grateful for my lineage. It is because it is the reason that I am today. But my heart always goes out and makes me come on, even when I could take a pass, because I'm thinking there may just be one lady who was in a similar place as my grandmother, who, when I watched or listened to her story, it was as if she just couldn't get a break. When I heard, people tell the different things that she faced and that she had gone through, I said, I know she felt like she just could not get a break. Maybe things would go well and then not so much. But because I had began going on this personal self-awareness, self-mastery journey for myself, I was able to identify some things that if somebody had just shared with her that 85% of the success of her life, and for us as entrepreneurs, our business is based on our relationships. And many of the women in, when I was researching my family tree, did not have the best relationships. The second thing I noticed that was, I'll call it a stronghold in her life, was, her mindset, right? And I believe that all of that was based on how she saw herself. And so every time I think about, like, I'm just going to take a pass, I'm not coming on live, I'm always thinking there may be this one individual that will hear something that I say. Maybe I'll be what Michelle was for me, this evening when I watched. And for those of us who don't really understand what leadership is, leadership is really stepping into a higher version of yourself every single moment, every single day, every single week, month, year. That's what leadership is. And leadership really starts with self-leadership. And so often we've been painted this picture of how it's supposed to be, and how we're supposed to build it and how we're supposed to do it. But what I've come to know is, if we don't do it from within, somebody put within in the comments, if we don't do this thing from within, we will always go back and repeat cycles. We will always go back and have to do it all over again. And I'm speaking from experience. Because after a while, when you begin to, for those of you who are believers, when we really begin to understand the Word of God, and we get a relationship with God, when we start understanding strongholds and, and things of that nature, we start learning about generational curses. And this is why our story is important. To me, it's important for us to have an understanding of our lineage and those who came before us, as we are in the space of becoming more and leading our own lives, because at that space we can begin to recognize, right, the bondage or the strongholds or the things that are holding us back. And for me, in 2001, I hadn't gotten married yet, but as I'm researching my family tree, I'm just starting to see, these patterns. And although they were dressed up differently, because so often, we dress things up, yes, within. So often we dress things up so much, right? We build brands and lives from external places and not from within. We dress things up so much until we'll say, well, my situation ain't like that. Y'all don't hear me. That ain't my situation. That ain't my story, because of the external things that we've built our life and our business on. Sometimes it's the examples, that we've had. But when I say leadership leads, I really feel that leadership is about becoming the next highest version of yourself on a continuous basis. And I believe that in order to step into your rightful space of leadership, it starts with you, or it starts with me. It starts within. It's an internal thing that happens. Those of you who own a business, those of you who, you have a team and you want to grow a tribe, and you want to lead in some position, all of the quality and substance of your leadership is going to come from within. It's going to come from on the inside. And for me, every time I built what I was building based on external things, I would always have to go back to almost square one. Anybody else? Are y'all with me on this evening? Put me in the comments if there's anyone else who has had that revelation in their life that, when I do it based on all this external stuff, it's like I always got to go back to square one. I always got to go back to the beginning, which requires me to go within. One of the things that Michelle Obama said this evening when I was watching, she said one of the students was sharing with her how he felt about, racial slurs, or, feeling proud of himself or whatever, right? And he asked her how to kind of handle the situation with the things that were going on around him. And she said not to let this time shape what will be. Not to let this time shape what will be. And I thought about what we are facing, now. Granted, the situation is different for different people, right? It's impacting people differently. A lot of it is based on where we were prior to the stay-at-home coronavirus, businesses being closed. It's impacting people differently as well because family members are being impacted. Some of our family members may be operating in a space of fear. It's affecting everyone, but it's affecting people differently. And when she said not to let this time shape what will be, I thought about this particular time. I also thought about when I was in a dysfunctional marriage that I knew was coming to an end. And I had gotten to the point where I was no longer attempting to fix, him. But I was diving deep within myself, not only to fix me, but to find me. And I actually transitioned from operating a brick and mortar business to online, growing a tribe, all of this during that time, right? During the turmoil and the chaos, the divorce, the going down to the attorney's office, having all these aha moments that are transpiring, finding a compromise. I was going through all of that while building the foundation for what I'm doing now. And it was because I decided to not let the time that was in front of me shape what would be. Does that make sense for you all? Because sometimes you may find yourself in a situation where nothing around you looks the way you desire it to look, or maybe one or two things are off and they're not the way that you want them to be, what you can physically see, but not to let that shape what will be. This is why I talk about vision all the time. Now, leadership requires you to have a vision. It requires you to have a vision that's bigger than where you currently are. As I listened to Michelle, I just heard leadership. Hey, Sheila, how are you, dear? I just heard leadership, leadership, leadership. She talked about the day that she left the White House. They were asking her, how did that feel to her? And she said she was relieved because for 8 years she had to walk in this space of almost being perfect because she was being condemned, watched with a fine-tooth comb, which is one of the reasons many people won't go to the next highest version of themselves, because in that space we are more accountable. We have to be held accountable in a different realm than if we just operate at a normal pace. And when I watched her, although her position, the pressure, I couldn't even imagine. But if we take what it is that we're building seriously as entrepreneurs, as women in business, those of us building brands, wanting to be influencers online, grow a tribe, if we really take that serious, that leadership role and position is no different. There are times where you have to understand that what you would rather say, what you want to say, what you really, really want to say, when your petty really, really, really wants to come out, you have to recognize that everything that you say and do is being observed. And this is not a space of I care so much about what people think as much as I care so much about the people that I'm called to serve, about the people that I am impacting. So one of the things that you must have when you're stepping into a leadership position is vision, because vision will keep you focused so that when you go to do something, do our little petty, because hey, listen, if you all know that all of us got a little petty, we could all get a little petty. Put me in the comments. If you guys know we can all get a little petty, like folks they don't have a clue, okay? But when you understand that there's someone watching you, not necessarily to scrutinize you, but someone who may admire you, someone who may be looking at what you do, how you handle it, what you say, your consistency online, your integrity in your business, how you are with your children, how you are with your spouse. There may be someone watching you that you're impacting, right? When you understand, when I listened to her talk about how they really wanted to change the world, they really wanted to change the world. And she understood that how she maneuvered and how she moved would make a difference. She talked about the power that position gave them, that their words, even something they said that they may have said carelessly, could start a war in that position with that much power. And many of you are in the same position with the same amount of power, maybe not for the world, but there are things that you can say that can start a war, whether it's a war within you, a war within family, a war within community. I watch how loosely we use words like stupid, dumb. I watch this by individuals that have gained followings or a measure of respect. I just feel the choice of words make a huge difference. They make a huge difference. And, a lot of people, we've always had this saying about keeping it real. But I feel that keeping it real is keeping it real in alignment with what your vision is. Right? It's like just because you think it doesn't mean you should say it. Now, this is just my opinion. But when we are constantly calling people stupid, idiot, dumb, where does that come from? It comes from within. It comes from within. And when I see us co-signing on things of that nature. Anyway, so leadership leads. Few things Michelle said. I watched that tonight. It was just divine. I hadn't planned on watching it. I'd already posted that I would be coming on this evening. But she said your story is important. And I was sharing with you guys at times that I just don't feel like coming on. And I come on anyway because I said I was. I think about my grandmother, which is a huge part of my story, a huge part of why I do what I do. It's a huge part of why I talk about women's personal economy, right? Because I understand that oftentimes our personal economy, which actually starts up here, it's really up here, will also cause us to settle. Depending on what our personal economy is, sometimes we stay in situations, we do things that we wouldn't ordinarily do if our personal economy wasn't, was better or was different. And when I say better, guys, I want to be so clear about better, because better doesn't necessarily mean you're earning multiple six figures or $1 million, because you can earn that much and still not have anything left. Does that make sense to you guys? You guys get that? Hey, Gloria, how are you, dear? Good evening. Guys, do me a favor, share the broadcast out. Leadership leads. I'm really simply speaking to you guys from a heart space tonight. I do have a few notes, but just sharing my experience with watching Michelle Obama. Anyone just come on who had an opportunity to watch Becoming? Anybody else? And if so, were you empowered by that? I was empowered by that. And I shared earlier that empowerment, there's still one more step to empowerment. There's still one more step to empowerment. So we can be empowered, but then we need self-leadership in order to do the thing after we get empowered. So leadership is important for those of you who are wanting to grow a tribe or, run a business. It's huge. I think I have an affection for people in leadership positions, because I understand that, for those of you who have staff, or even if you're growing a tribe online, you're a coach and you have clients that you work with, whatever your role is as a leader. Many of you are creatives. Some of you may be dance instructors or an influencer online. It's a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And the first responsibility that is most important that you decide that you're going to do is focus on leading you. Because it's from that space that you're going to be able to lead everything else that you do. So often we overlook personal development and personal growth, but personal development and personal growth is that thing that separates the millionaire who is still unhappy, and it separates that person from the person who doesn't have nearly as much, but emotionally, right? How they lead in their emotions. Personal development and personal growth is huge. It's really huge. I watched Michelle operate in such a strength and a role of leadership. She even said this thing. She said when she and Barack started getting serious, she said, if I don't rise up, I will be overtaken by a tsunami. She said that he was really a strong-willed and opinionated individual. And she made a decision to become more, just to actually become more. Had she not, we probably wouldn't have seen her as First Lady. But look how much she's grown through that experience. She talked about the challenges sometimes with being the first Black. She said first Black anything. And it made me think about when I did own a brick and mortar service-based business. At that time, on my block, there was no other, I was on a boulevard actually, and for miles, there was no other African-American business in the area. And my mom would always ask me, why don't you have owner on your business cards or anything of that nature? It wasn't because I was hiding. Sometimes the purpose of what it is that you are doing is bigger than the title. Y'all don't hear me. Sometimes the purpose of what you're doing is bigger than the title. So I never had like owner on my business cards or anything like that. I can remember this one particular time where I'm like, we had this like wall section you had to walk around, and I'm back there shampooing hair. And mind you, I had an assistant, and I had 3 customer care coordinators who were not of my skin color. And a gentleman walks in and asks to speak with the owner. And so my front desk guy, who was Caucasian, he comes. He was like, "There's someone up front who wants to see you." Now, mind you, I didn't allow soliciting. I don't know why he even came to me with it, but he must have felt that it was okay that day, and it was, because I was gonna see what they wanted. And I went up to say, to address the person who walked in the door. And I said, "Hi, how can I help you?" And he says, "Oh, no, I'm waiting for the owner." So I said, "Oh, okay." So I turn right back around and I go right back to the shampoo bowl, and I just continue shampooing hair, and I leave him there. And my customer care coordinator comes back, goes over to him. I hear him. He said, "Did she ever come up? Didn't you just, is everything okay? Didn't you just see her?" And he was like, "Oh no, I just didn't think, that was the owner." And so I understood that because it wasn't a big deal, right? For me. Now, of course, I told my front desk to tell him that I didn't allow soliciting and he could leave his card. But I knew that my title, being, or really like displaying that I was the owner, it wasn't the goal, right? The goal was to grow the business. It was much bigger than that. And sometimes we have to figure out what the bigger picture is. And this is where your vision comes into place. I had already had a vision that I would have a multitude of cultures, working in my business. And I'm blessed. I was 60% of my staff was other than African American, and we had a really great culture inside the business. But sometimes you got to know what it is that is important when you're building. I want you to think about your timeline right now. This is an assignment that I want you guys to do. I want you guys to go back down your timeline for maybe let's say the past 3 days, right? And I want you to look at every single thing that you posted on your timeline in the last 3 days, right? And then I want you to answer this question. Where are you leading the people on your timeline? Go back down your timeline for the past 3 days and look at every single thing that you posted. And then answer the question, where am I leading the people on my timeline? Because every bit of building your brand, for those of you who are on social media in any form or fashion, is connected to this is your digital brochure. So if you had to say, where am I leading the people on my timeline? Based on what I posted in the past 3 days, where am I leading people on my timeline? Now, if you ever wanted to understand the type of content you should be creating based on the type of business that you have, if you go back down your timeline for the last 3 days and look at what you've posted, you can answer your own question. Am I leading the people on my timeline to convert over to my services? Am I leading them wise? Where am I leading the people on my timeline? Based on, if I had to base it on what I posted on my timeline in the last 3 days. See, when you understand that your leadership is in operation in everything that you do, even on your timeline. But see, when you get really, really clear on what your vision is, it will exude into everything that you do. When that level of clarity comes front and center for you, it will be in alignment. See, when we're out of alignment, it means that what we say we desire and what we're doing are two different things. What we say we desire and what we're doing are two different things. I just don't want any of you to get caught up in the social media frenzy, and then you look back and you're like, am I building my brand? What am I really doing up here? Is that clear, guys? Does that make sense? See, all of what we're doing is an internal process that we're going through, and it details our leadership. It's from within. It's not all the stuff on the outside. It's from within. When we were facing excuse me, this pandemic and it was coming out, everybody's position of leadership was coming out in their post. Yeah. And so we have to say, am I leading people towards fear? Am I leading them towards doubt? Am I leading them anywhere? Am I giving them solutions? Am I leading them towards peace? Go down your timeline over the last 3 days. I'm going to go back and look at mine as well. I didn't do that before I came on, but it was something that I wrote down because I know that it will probably be a space of clarity for many people, because we get so into the flow, of things that sometimes we forget that our goal is to influence or impact people or even build our brand. It's also going to let us know if we have a level of clarity that we need to have in order to attract the right people, in order to offer them the services and products that we feel are valuable for them. Leadership leads. Another thing in this particular pandemic that we're facing, the number of people who have not heard from the owners of businesses that they work for or clients who haven't heard from people who were their service provider prior to this. All of that is leadership. All of it is leadership. And our goal is to be able to lead whether times are good or times are bad. Our leadership actually shows up more when things are, or it's more important when things are uncomfortable than any other time. So I understand how fear comes in. It just takes over, right? If you allow it to. And for me, it's important for the people that I deem mentors or coaches in my life, or that I allow to have some type of impact in my thinking. It's important in times like this that they are operating as leaders, right? Not spewing out fear or, one of the, I'm all in my internalness this evening, but when I see someone considered an influencer who calls people stupid and dumb, I just, it's not for me. I mean, some people love it because they let the folks call them stupid and agree to it and all of that stuff, but it's certain things that I refuse to answer to. I'm not answering to it in a joke. I'm not answering to it, agreeing to it in a post. Listen, all of that is a measure of what you're allowing and what you're accepting. And when you're ready to really step into the next highest version of yourself, you have to let go of, I mean, because you know in your heart, it already don't really feel right anyway, right? And you have to be powerful enough from within to be okay with not even accepting it as a joke. I remember when I first met one of my friends, and we weren't saved at the time or whatever, but they used to say, "What up, B?" And I think this was maybe the second or third time I had kind of like been, well, not the second or third time I had been in her presence, but maybe the second or third time she had, used that verbiage. And I was like, I know that's what everybody's saying right now. I know, it's a cool phrase, but I have a hard time answering to this now. I wasn't saved and I was pretty young at the time. And I said, I just don't see myself calling my friends by the B word. And it's powerful. What you are agreeing to, what you are accepting, what you are reading, what you are allowing into your internal space, it impacts what you accept in your life. Guys, leadership leads, right? And the first place that leadership leads is the leader. And whether you have a business or family or tribe, influencing, whatever it is that you're doing, if you have none of that, you still have you that you're leading. You still have you that you're leading. Leadership is a skill set you will need for your future. We overlook personal development, personal growth. We want to get to the thing, but actually your leadership, your self-leadership, what's going on within, it's the thing. It's the thing that's going to improve the value that you bring to the marketplace. It's going to improve the value that you bring to your community. Your leadership, it's within. It's all that other stuff, it won't make a hill of beans. Not a hill of beans. If you don't work on the stuff within. Your thinking, where your emotions are taking you. All of that, that's where it all is. It's the difference in when times like this arise in how you handle things and how you come out of it. It's your thinking. It's how you think about it. If you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. One of the things that I do understand about our emotions and how they impact everything that we do is we can control them. Now, it takes a little discipline because it may mean that we have to shut social media off. It may mean that we have to snooze people on our timelines. It may mean that we have to be intentional about what we're watching. Whenever I go into a little funk, I go get things on, I read and watch things on faith. I read and watch things on empowerment. I listen to things about my thinking, because I understand that 80% of the success of anything that you're doing is based on your thinking, right? And then at the same time, 85% of your success is based on your relationships, which really comes from your thinking. So your personal growth and your personal development is going to be bigger than any of the other stuff. It is the thing. It is the thing. It's the reason why I knew that it would take a certain individual to find the full value in things like 3D Success Academy, because it's about your destiny, your dollars, and your discipline. When they go to the landing page, they'll see things on leadership, communication. Everybody doesn't want to hear that, but a leader, someone who understands their vision, someone who really wants to take things to the next level, someone who not only wants to get their business but wants to get their life, will find it attractive. Those are the individuals that I'm called to serve. I'm called to leaders. And some of you just haven't recognized that you're a leader. Some of you haven't recognized the position that you really hold in what it is that you're building, in the brand, in the brand that you want to build. It took me a while to like share my story of with my grandmother who had 13 children and no husband, who was considered promiscuous back in the day, but no one really shared that at 14 she was molested. That wasn't an easy story for me to begin telling. I even got some backlash from my family, as I began to share it. But I understood that this baby was 13 or 14, 12 or whatever when, the cycles of life began happening to her. But I was still able to see someone who had strength. And it was a thing on the inside of me that wanted to help women in their personal growth and their personal development, having been in dysfunctional marriage myself, and understanding that. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and she was like, well, yeah, but you were still doing your thing. You still had a successful business and da-da. I was like, yeah, but I was falling apart on the inside. And it was beginning to crumble because I wasn't getting the personal stuff, right? I wasn't going within. And so no matter what measure of success the things that we deem successful, it's all going to be from within. So your leadership will lead you to what you should be working on and focusing on and watching and listening to next. Because leadership leads. It not only leads other people, but it leads you. Your self-leadership, it leads. And where you are in that space of leadership, it shows up. Me too. In every single thing that we do, in the decisions that we make. It's so many things. I hope I'm not ranting, but when I see people like really beefing with leaders, online, it's always a little disturbing to me, because in my mind, I want to say, go to the source, do something, right? Because sometimes we're rallying without true substance. Leadership leads. I had no idea I would go all the way there, but leadership leads. Just know that you are a leader. You have an assignment and a call. We all have an assignment and a call. We all have a purpose, and all of our purpose, if you're believers, is the same thing. All of our purpose is the same, but we all have different assignments and calls. And one of the best positions you could ever step into is the one where you're working on you. It's the best thing that you could ever do. It's going to determine who you attract. It's going to determine how you lead your team, how you grow your team, the substance of the team that you attract and that you grow. It's going to determine the opportunities that you get in your life and in your business. It's how we impact other people online, because you're impacting someone every single day. Someone's looking up to you. You're just that great that someone is looking up to you even now on social media, and they've never shared it with you. They've never talked about it. They just follow you because something that you're doing, is inspiring them or attracting them. And I just feel that we have a huge responsibility to put our self-leadership before anything. I've been reading self-help books since maybe junior high. I don't know why. I always had and affection for those things. Now, it didn't stop me from making many mistakes in my, early adult life, but it did make me think about it. Like, I would notice things that I don't think I would have recognized before if I hadn't been on this like self-improvement journey. And I think it's a forever thing, though. It never really ends, especially if you have a huge vision. Working on yourself is always going to be a huge dynamic to growing your brand and growing your business, your family, and your life. So leadership leads. I just thought I would share a little bit of what I watched with Michelle with Becoming on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, I think it was great. I'm not even a TV watcher, but I think it was excellent opportunity for us to see someone who really operated in a tremendous leadership role. But if you notice, she kind of had her becoming moments before the presidency. She was like already like working on herself. And so a lot of times when we're working on personal development and personal growth, it doesn't necessarily mean that we will face a situation that like immediately where we'll have to use what we learn, but it's in those moments and in those situations that the work that you have done actually stands up to the forefront. So it's not like it's maybe every single day that what you did learn is going to be at the forefront of your mind, but it will be in times of adversity or uncertainty or times like we're facing, that the work that you've done personally on your mindset and your thinking and possibility in your faith and how you're going to lead in the moment, if you're not leading anybody but your own self. But that work that you've done, even if you didn't have to use it in the moment, it will always show up when you need it the most. And people will see it every single day. And you'll create a new level of value. And in the marketplace, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, people pay for value. They pay for value. You guys have a super amazing evening. If you watched it, put me in the comments. If you didn't, take a look at it. It's on Netflix. I love you guys. Be blessed. Remember that leadership leads, and the first person that it leads is you. You have something really amazing that the world is waiting on, and they're just waiting on you. You don't have to be perfect. Let me please say that. You don't have to be perfect. And remember, the things that you work on in personal growth and personal development, they'll become necessary in the moment, right? In that time where you would normally be indecisive or uncertain, that leadership, that personal work that you did will stand up to the forefront. You guys have a super blessed evening.